Let's go. Let's start here with the topic, huh? The topic is business class black box. Just kidding, folks.
Starting with the topic, why do you use the 08? Then we'll talk about the 08. Tell me more about that.
Guys, here's the thing. I decided to make the topic today, the modern professional guitarist. The guys are modern, so all still in their prime, entering their 40s. Right.
Already entered. We're in the crisis, right? Also new, but also not old. It's the 40s crisis.
But what I find cool about this topic that I brought to you is the following. Because you are guitarists who are already super established. You've already passed that phase where you accept anything because you have to do it, you have to be known. You're already stable. Ooh-ah. But it's also that moment where you can't slack off now. You have to stay updated because there's always a younger crowd. And it's normal for younger producers to identify with a younger crowd who are their friends. So you also have to be careful not to lose the positions you have. We're being open here because we're all friends. So we're going to start with the story of Antonio and Leandro versus Marcio. There's already an episode for each of them here, so if anyone wants to know more, their episodes will be here. You can learn everything in detail. But man, I'm going to start with that basic question. What is the minimum equipment someone needs to start playing professionally? Because sometimes the guy thinks, man, I only have this guitar. I only have this little pedal board with wave. So what do you think is the minimum? I'll start with Leandro here.
Man, I'll speak from my own beginnings, right? The first big artist I started working with was Kleber Lucas. That is, with more exposure, right? I also worked with Serge Lopez before, who was a really great and well-known guy. But when I went to Kleber, it was really I traveled a lot, right? And I didn't have amazing equipment, I had a guitar. I remember I had a luthier-made guitar, right?
Which one was it? Was it Envy?
No, man. In fact, it was a Frank Stein. It was a little of everything.
I don't think it even existed at the time. It didn't exist back then, no?
It was very old. It was quite Frank Stein, but it was cool. An instrument that worked. It had some quirks. That thing where you put a little bit of everything in there. It tuned well. And then I had a pedal board that was a small Vox Tone Lab. That's what I had, man. That's what I had. And I remember I joined the project like that.
And no one made fun of the gear on tour.
They did, Leon.
Do you think people...
They did without a doubt. I earned it through playing, not through the equipment. One thing I find really cool is that sometimes people today are often too worried about buying equipment, forgetting to study. So I got the gig through playing, but it was made very clear to me, hey man, let's give it this. Yeah, there's no way around it. So I started playing, went on the road with the money I started receiving. First thing, I bought a Fender. A month later, I bought a little Fender. Do you still have it today? No, it's long gone. That's why I don't sell instruments anymore. I've made so many mistakes selling instruments. Then I bought that Fender. Then soon after, I started investing in a pedal setup. No, I lie. I bought a Pod X3. The pedals came after that. That happened within 3 months. So what I mean is to play professionally, man, it's important to have good equipment, right?
I think the whole issue is defining what good equipment is. You started quite modestly, right?
Yeah, no, I started like that because, man, they won't kick you out of the project because your equipment is bad. They'll kick you out if you don't perform.
At times, a guy shows up with a nuclear power plant and doesn't deliver. Nothing happens exactly.
But they will demand from you, man, because it's the artist. Because there are artists who really notice these things, watch a lot of videos, who see the big brands on stage, see a Fender, see a Gibson. So the guy wants that on stage with him. Some people don't. So it really depends on the artist's work. In Kleber's case, for example, he likes Fender, he likes Gibson. So he always wanted and said, man, cool. He even brought a Gibson for me from the United States. I paid him, right? At that time, the dollar was 2 and something, so beautiful thing, right? Brought a Gibson from the USA. I had a Fender, and then a Gibson appeared. Man, then you got on stage, the guy was happier. Not that this, wow, I'm hitting the dollar here. Not that this influenced the playing, no. The tone is better, of course, because it's a nice instrument. The Gibson is very, man, the Gibsons, it's a great guitar that goes in that direction. There's a Strat, which is a very versatile guitar that works for everything, right? But I didn't start with great equipment, but I do think this upgrade is important. Okay. I don't mean to say, oh, Paulino, so you need to have a good guitar to play with a professional. Man, a doctor, a barber will want to have a good machine. Everyone wants to improve. I also think it's no use showing up to a gig with humble equipment. Man, now I'm earning this money here. I'm going to hold on to this money here because, man, all right. No, you have to invest, man. You have to invest in yourself.
So it's a different time, right? But nowadays, it doesn't mean a guitar has to be a brand name. A good guitar today doesn't need to be a Gibson, a Fender. Today, there are many guitars, even national ones, that are very good.
An artist is an artist, right? In Kleber's case, for example, man, he liked to see the brand on stage, right? He wanted to see you with a Gibson there. Man, my guitar is a Gibson. Because he knows, and the guy dreams of having everything he sees, the guys have branded instruments. They're on camo stage. He wanted to see that. But there are other artists I played for as well. If I had any guitar, it would be fine. So you think it really depends on the artist you're going to play with, right?
Yes.
I don't know how it is with Fernanda.
I think she goes more for the sound itself.
For the sound, wonderful. So, in my opinion, there are these two options, right? The artist might suddenly look and see the guy with a non-brand guitar, but the sound is really good and they'll relax. And there are people who say, whoa, hold on. I've heard stories where a guy went to play a gig and got the gig because he used a gypsy, used this and that. The guy got the gig because of that. The artist looked and thought, wow,
I want this guy here.
I want this guitar here. I just want the guitar here.
I just want the guitar. But tell us, Marcinho, you said that you don't necessarily think you need a brand name guitar, right?
Yeah, the main thing is to show up playing, right? As he said. And it's a good guitar in the sense that it's a guitar that stays in tune and has a good sound, you know? So today, but when he spoke, there are two different eras, right? The era he's talking about, which was at the beginning with Kleber, the guitars, especially the national ones, were something else, right? Nowadays, it's completely different. Everything is very accessible, right? It's very balanced too, right, man? It's very balanced. So you can arrive with, it's more about what he said about the brand itself, right? In my case, at the beginning, it was professionally, I actually started with Felipe, right? With Felipe Dillon, as you mentioned, right? And I also had a Jackson and an RP7, that blue one, very old like that. And when I started, he and his father, who are very dear, they helped me. They said, look, now you're going, to another level. You need to have something of better quality. So let's go to Pro Music, right? Which I was actually there yesterday, the day before yesterday. So, yesterday, buying strings there with Cicero, a great partner, Copacabana. And then they took me there, and it was even at the old Pro Music, right? And they said, look, now choose a guitar that will meet your needs, and then we'll deduct it, say, as you do shows. That's when I got my Fender, which I still have to this day, by the way. Because the Fender is kind of universal, right? Especially for pop, Felipe Nuno's sound was very heavy, right? So the main thing was a Fender. So I spent a long time using the Fender and my RP7. I also bought a slide that I needed to do a specific solo. Those were the things I needed to do that work, right? And then as it grew, I bought that little blue one, which was like the pod. But it was blue. The one from Behringer, yes.
Viamp.
Viamp.
Everyone has had a Viamp.
Viamp 12, which I later found out has a memory problem. Out of nowhere, it resets. I found this out the hard way.
On the road. Exactly that.
Then I became a master at adjusting it on the spot. It reset. No, it's all good. I already knew what it was. I adjusted it on the spot already. Then I went. In fact, if you want, I can even send a photo now that there are scouts, right? Then I'll send a photo of the pedal board, and it will be down here. On this side, no, on this one, look. Then he puts it.
Cool, have good stuff.
Then I'll send the photo of the old pedal board, Jaco Abering, right? Then we started making money, working on the road. And I always took care of that, right? I remember at the time my dad said I had money to buy a car or upgrade the equipment, right? And I chose to buy the equipment, which I still have to this day. Then one day I thought and said, hey, Dad, lend me the car so I can go to rehearsal. He goes, gets on the guitar and goes with the guitar. Ha, 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 ha. Because he wanted me to buy the car so he could use his, right? But equipment always comes first, as it's what will support you in the future.
Yeah, but you see, right, what happened with you guys was somewhat similar. The opportunity came. When the opportunity arrived, man, you went with the repertoire ready, with suitable tones for each of the songs. You got there and delivered. Because none of you got to that place without a recommendation, isn't that right?
But in my case, there's a complication because I think he was invited, right, to the club.
He went to do an audition.
He did an audition. In my case, well, I was a friend of Felipe, right? And I was very young at the time. I was, I don't know, 19 years old then. And when he called me to join the band, EMI didn't want it. So much so that EMI told him he needed very mature musicians by his side, that he was too young. Yeah. And he stood his ground. So much so that the one who played guitar was Knush.
No, but the story from the other side, we've already heard it here, which is the story of Zé, of Marcelão, that they were producing, right?
They were producing exactly, so much so that in the video for Deixa Disso, Felipe's first song, I played the drums because the drummer couldn't do it. I only played drums in the video and wasn't even part of the band. Then he said, man, I really wanted you to join the band because Serginho has a lot of work at his studio. He won't be able to do everything. And I wanted a permanent guy here. Then they insisted at TMI, and that's how I joined. So that's it. I knew I didn't have the best equipment and I didn't have the name. So where did I have to make my difference? I had to show up knowing everything. So at the first rehearsal, man, I knew everything I had to do. Everything was figured out. I knew what the drummer had to do, what the keyboardist had to do. I knew everything about everyone. No one had any doubts. I said, no, stop here. I kind of got involved and spoke up because I was really into the business, you know, like a direction, right? It was kind of a band.
It's very serious because the formula hasn't changed, right, brother?
Yeah, the opportunity will come. The difference is whether you will be prepared or not. That's it. And since I really wanted it, it was the chance of my life. Man, I didn't show up half-heartedly. I showed up with everything ready at the right time, in the right place. Exactly. And it happened at the last rehearsal before the first show. I was studying business administration at the time and had an exam, right? So we finished the rehearsal early. I said, can I go, man? I have an exam today. Then Felipe said, you can go. Then as I was leaving the studio, about 4 cars arrived, all black with tinted windows. The guys from EMI's record label. I said, Felipe, all good. We came to watch the show here, play the show for us. The road crew had almost dismantled everything. They set everything up again. Then he looked at me and I said, no, let's go. Forget about the exam. So we performed the whole show in suits with all of EMI sitting there. Wow. Then when it was over, I said, so man, do you think they liked it? I asked Felipe's father, who was the manager, and he said, man, they didn't say anything. And I think that's the best compliment you're going to get from them in your EMI career. That's it. Because if it had been bad, they would definitely have said something, right? But anyway, everything worked out. That's it. If it hadn't worked out, you wouldn't be here, right? Good. Night.